Fine, how are you? Thank you for doing this with us today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Can you hand them to me? So, are we recording yet?
Yeah,
recording. Okay. So this is
Oh, wait a minute, who's that?
well, this is Little Bear. He was just surrendered here because he didn't get along with children in the house, and they had a big Rottweiler. And we get surrenders. We've had about 15 or so in the last 2 weeks that have come here that people don't want their animals anymore. But
Too bad.
I wanted to say thanks for coming on. We're doing an event right now, which is the celebration of life. Of course, we're talking about dogs and cats and how many come to Famous Fido and what we do, but we're also making awareness to all the animals on the planet, from wildlife to the farm animals, agricultural animals, horses, rabbits, and what they have to go through in our world right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we also take in special needs dogs, which are seniors, bonded pairs, animals that have medical challenges that most people may not want to adopt, work with special adopters, and try to get them into great homes.
That's amazing.
What is Pilot for Paws? What do you do, Fred?
So Pilots and Paws, a volunteer organization where pilots, we transport animals all over the country. It's a nationwide organization. In Chicago, in this part of the country, we seem to be going to the south and bringing the animals back here to Chicago, back north. Various reasons for that. Spay and neuter laws are limited, if at all. The weather conditions sort of result in animals procreating, we'll call it, all year round. And there seems to be an abundance of homes here for them in the Midwest. So we're able to use the airplane to transport the animals faster than volunteers would be able to drive them, obviously. So it's been really rewarding and a lot of fun.
It sounds like a great mission that you have. There's so many animals being abandoned right now, and many people are not looking for solutions. They feel bringing them to a shelter is the only plan that they have, and these animals go through Great Depression. You know, there's many seniors this week, and different people surrendering because they had no life plan for their animal, and relatives, you know, they pass away and their animal is still here and the relatives don't want to take them, or friends, and then they have nowhere to go. So it's real important that animals do have a life plan, that you have somebody that's going to take your dog or cat in if something happens to you, and you put it in your will. You guys get it?
That's a good idea. I don't know. People maybe don't think about that as often as they should.
Well, if they don't, then where's the animal going to go? A shelter? Like, you're bringing them back from other states. There's so many animals in Chicago that need homes, and we keep breeding the animals in backyards and puppy mills. From pit bulls to chihuahuas are, of course, the worst situation. Is there's so many bully breed dogs sitting in shelters, little chihuahuas and cats, and we really have to get a grip on this, like to do something to educate people, of course, but try to do something different where people just can't go out and get an animal and then give it up for allergies if they have children or they're moving and they don't think about it. And of course, when people pass away, you know, we have a 15-year-old Rottweiler here that somebody passed away, and a Yorkie that was on the person's lap when she passed away. So, and none of the relatives wanted to take these dogs in.
Well, and it's why I have so much respect for the organizations, I'm sure like yours, that do their vetting on the prospective adoptees or adopters. And I think people forget that requires staff and volunteers and effort and work, you know, to make sure that these animals are not only cared for while in your care, but also, you know, wherever they're going to go. And I think it's just one of the many aspects of what you're doing there that requires, you know, donations and volunteers and help. And I know that's what you're doing here with this.
I thank you for really telling people about that, because it does cost us $30,000 a month minimum to be here to take care of the animals. Each animal is about $150 a month to take care of for their food, medical, and care. And then there's a lot of counseling because, and we don't have paid employees. You know, I don't pay myself. But we have counseling for people that have no solutions for vetting care for their animals. Like yesterday, there was a woman who had a cat and she didn't know it was a diabetic, and it was urinating all over the house, and she had to get some help to even find out about diabetes. And we paid for that medical care for her to keep her cat, because her intention was to bring it somewhere because she couldn't deal with the problem anymore. So there's a lot of education. That's why the Learning Center here is so important, to talk about issues with animals, because it's very complex when somebody does adopt. We do put them through screening, and people sometimes get upset about it because they can go get a dog or cat anywhere. But we put them through screening. We see, where the dog or cat's gonna live, and we try to fit them in the best possible home. The problem is there's so many at such an alarming rate being put out there.
Yeah, well, I'm constantly inspired meeting people like you and all the different organizations that I meet flying for Pilots and Paws all over the country, because there are brands I call them, or shelters that you hear a lot about, and they're wonderful, and they're doing incredible work, and many of them have the support of celebrities or media personalities or whatever, and then there are other ones, smaller ones, perhaps not as well known, that are also doing amazing work, and our transportation means that one of 3 volunteers or something at a shelter in Kentucky doesn't have to drive 500 miles round trip for the animals, and can stay there and stay focused on that, not to mention the expense. And that's just one example. I continue to meet people who give so selflessly, to save these animals, who oftentimes are powerless in this equation. There's nothing that they can do.
That's the whole, without us, without people out there to speak for the animals and give them a voice, so many are not seen, so many slip through the cracks. And, euthanizing animals, we just don't believe in that, even that there's so many animals out there, but euthanizing them is not the solution. It's trying to educate people, give them the right information, and rehome animals instead of bringing them to shelters. And think about what you're doing when you adopt an animal. It's very important. People want to get these guys for kids, and they think their kids are going to take care of them, and they don't train their children on how to work with animals and live with them their entire life. And then if somebody gets bit or scratched, then animals get taken to shelters. And there's just too many animals there, and there's not enough room, and there's no hope with keep the cycle going like that. We have to do something about stopping the cycle of animals being thrown away. And what you're doing is amazing work, because in the rural areas in the South, it's way more difficult, because many of those dogs live outside. They're used as breeding dogs and hunting dogs, and then thrown away when they're not useful anymore. And then they come to the city, and then we have all these animals and those animals together, and then we have to find great homes for them with people that really, you don't learn about animals in schools, you don't learn about them in churches. And that's why the Learning Center is so important, to make people aware of the commitment it takes and what animals are really about. In the celebration of life, it's beyond dogs and cats. There's a whole other world of animals, from agricultural animals that live in factory farms, wildlife that's being, there's 1.5 million animals and plants that we're in our 6th extinction right now, and we're wiping the animals off the planet. So we need to look at the whole picture of animals. And in the celebration of life, what we say is one life, one precious life, and that's how we should be thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you for your incredible work, and for the your efforts, and for the awareness that you're generating for so many different important causes here. It's not just about adoptable dogs or cats. It obviously, for you, it goes so much further than that.
Well, thank you. And also, if anybody wants to help, they can donate to our website, which is famousfidorescue.org. And also, we need volunteers to come and work with the animals, and we need sponsors for many of their medical issues.